Yo, what's up everybody? My name is Jeff and you found Midweek Worship at Cities Church. Hey guys, thanks for joining us this week. If you're connecting with us for the first time and you've just discovered this broadcast, it might help you to figure out who we are and what we're all about by looking below me in the notes. You see that link to that YouTube video? Well, that'll tell you why we started this broadcast, who we are as a church, what we're trying to do with this thing that we call Midweek Worship. Man, we have been talking for months, literally for months, about sin. And I am so glad that last week we finished that topic. Don't get me wrong, I like talking about what the Bible talks about, but I'm ready to move on from the topic of sin. And starting tonight, we get a chance to talk about my favorite topic of all time. We're going to start talking about Jesus. There's going to be a lot of ground that we're going to cover. So tonight is kind of an overview of where we're going to go for the next couple of weeks in this broadcast. We're going to talk tonight about the person and work of Jesus. You can see that image right there on the screen. And basically, the first half of this, we're going to talk about who Jesus is as a person, who he is as God. And then the second half of it, we're going to talk about what he did when he left heaven and came to earth. Tonight is kind of the big picture overview of the person and work of Jesus. Man, there is stuff all over the Bible that we could use to look at for this. But before we even get into the topic, before we even get into the Bible, how about if we sing a song to Jesus? And I'm going to turn things over to our friends in South Africa. Pete's going to lead us in a song. I want you to think about Jesus as you're singing this song. And then after the song, we're going to come back and get started on the topic of the person and work of Jesus. Take it away, Pete.
Oh, now I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, and I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide, and you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect, you're perfect, perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. unexplainable. I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable. I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love, 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 love. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I have 4 boys of my own. And it's amazing that I only now I know, like, I'll do anything for those boys. And the Bible says, how much more will my God, who is perfect in every way, take care of me? You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am.
All right, now that you've been singing a song to Jesus, now we're ready, and I think our hearts are prepared to open up the Bible. Or if you were watching last week, maybe the better word to use is our soul is ready now to open up the Bible and to hear from God. Now we're ready to learn more about Him. As I said a minute ago, the Bible is chocked full of information about Jesus. You have lots of passages in the Old Testament that reference God's Messiah, but they don't mention Jesus by name. And then the entire New Testament is built around one person. It's built around Jesus. In fact, the whole Bible is really built around one person. So I had to really discipline myself to narrow down one passage from the Bible. This passage, though, is so important that I want you to commit it to memory. I'm serious. I'm going to put it on the screens. I want you to say where it's found in the Bible. I want you to read it out loud, and then one more time, say where it's found in the Bible, just to lock in the address in your mind. But I want you to memorize this, because this Bible verse gives really the kernel of essence of who Jesus is and what He did. This Bible verse comes from the book of Hebrews. And Hebrews was written after Jesus' death and resurrection, but Hebrews was written to the Hebrew people. Makes sense that they would name it Hebrews, right? Because it is, I think, a sermon that was preached to the Jews, and then somebody wrote that sermon down, and we call that book of the Bible Hebrews. And that means that the entire book of Hebrews in the Bible is really trying to explain to the Jews this Jewish rabbi born in a carpenter's house who walked in their midst for a few years. Hebrews is trying to tell them that guy that walked in your midst was a whole lot more than just a rabbi. He was a lot more than Mary's son and Joseph the carpenter's boy. And the book of Hebrews, from the very first verse, starts to describe who Jesus is. So we're going to look at Hebrews 1, verse 3. And here's what it says. The Son, speaking of Jesus, is the radiance of God's glory and the exact expression of his nature, sustaining all things by his powerful word. Hebrews 1, verse 3. Hey, I just want to pause for a second and point out a couple of really big concepts that you read in this one verse. The Son of God, speaking of Jesus, is the radiance of God's glory. Now, that word glory in this verse really is a word that the Hebrews would use to describe light in the darkness. The glory, or the bright shining glory of God, would be the light that shines into the darkness. The glory also had some substance to it. It had some weight to it. It's the thing that gave life meaning and weight and substance. And there's a phrase right in the middle of this verse that I want you to hang on to. The reason why I asked you to memorize it is because of that phrase right in the middle of the verse, when Hebrews chapter 1 verse 3 calls him the exact expression of his, God's, nature. Now I want you to think about what the Bible just said for a second. An exact expression would be like, hey, I just made a painting of this beautiful mountain view, and the painting is the perfect representation of the mountain view. But unfortunately, the mountain view is three-dimensional and the painting is two-dimensional. So although it is picture perfect to the eye, it's still not exactly the same thing. And God, who is spirit, God who exists, who is so grand, so glorious that he even tells Moses, listen, you can't see my face and live. God sends his exact expression. And what the Bible is telling us is that when we see Jesus, we are seeing exactly what God is like. Not just visibly what God is like, but the phrase in Hebrews 1 is we're seeing God's nature put on display, meaning everything that you see in Jesus is how God is. Where Jesus gets angry, that's where God gets angry. When Jesus weeps, that's what makes God weep. When Jesus is happy, that's what delights the heart of God the Father. And when Jesus is sad, that's what breaks God the Father's heart. And when you study Jesus in the Bible, you really are studying God. That's the person of Jesus. But this verse also describes the work of Jesus, that he sustains all of God's world, all of God's powerful word. Remember, back in the beginning of the Bible, God spoke the word light and light appeared. God spoke the word earth and sky and mountains and streams and plants and animals, and all of those things appeared. His powerful word made everything that we see around us. And you know why the universe isn't spinning out of control? Because according to Hebrews 1:3, Jesus is keeping it all under control. He's sustaining it, and he's keeping it all going right now, because Jesus has all the power of God, and he has all of the nature of God. In fact, what we're going to learn next week, this big theological concept that's really hard for a lot of people, including me, to understand, is Jesus can be both 100% man and 100% God at the same time. there's also something that I want you to understand about Jesus here. And that is that when you see Jesus, you really are seeing the nature of God put on display. Which brings me to a question. And like we normally do around here, I'm going to end this broadcast tonight with a question that I want you to think about, and then a question that I want you to talk about after this broadcast is over with. If you're hanging with your friends, if you've got your family around, parents, talk to your children. Children, talk to your parents about this question. And the question is directly about Jesus. I'll put it on the screens for you. Here it is. What is the difference between Jesus and God the Father? Hebrews 1 verse 3 just said that Jesus was the radiance of his glory, the exact expression of his nature, that he sustains everything that God created by his powerful word. These are all the ways that Jesus and God are the same. But this question asks you, okay, there's lots of ways that they're the same, but how are they different? And I'm going to add a word that you don't see on the screen. How exactly are they different? Like, what is the exact difference between Jesus and God? I want you to think about it, and then I want you to talk about it after we close this broadcast. Thanks for being with me. See you next week.